Hello everyone and welcome. Make a cup of your favorite drink and get comfortable because this is a wonderful time for new stories from Yellow Cat. Send your own stories in the comments below and maybe they'll be in our new video. Subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed yet. Let's get started. Redditors who walked off the job without notice, what straw broke the camel's back? Part 3. I was hired as an assistant manager at a hardware store with the promise that I would become store manager as soon as the current store manager was fired. The district manager was one of my old hiring store managers at another small business and quickly became like a dad to me. I hired him in November and was told he would be gone by February. The store manager was slack, rude, and forgot how to treat people. He constantly bothered me and made fun of me for working all day on projects that the owners had asked us to finish on time, but we were behind because I was the only one working on them. His staff did everything halfway because he didn't trust them to do more work than he did. I tried to run the staff and make things better. February comes around, and the owners still haven't said anything about this guy leaving anytime soon. They felt bad for him and said that because he knew all the customers, they should keep him as store manager. Even though he had worked there since it was a lumber store 10 years ago, the store wasn't doing well because he wasn't taking care of it. The district manager quit after 6 months because his wife got a good job across the country close to where he grew up. I was left by myself. Even though he messed up and clearly didn't care, the owners kept giving this guy second chances. At the time, my partner knew how stressed I was and told me over and over again to quit and go back to school. I was 28 years old and had dropped out of school when I was 19. I didn't want to work in retail for the rest of my life. That she supported me and showed me this choice may have helped me decide. It's August now, and school starts in September. I knew I had to quit quickly if I wanted to. I just wasn't sure if I really wanted to do it. One day, I went to work as usual, but I knew right away that it would be my last day there. During the day, I got angry that things weren't getting done, employees were rude to customers, and orders weren't being put in. I had to make up for everyone's mistakes. That's why I chose not to come back. Set off the alarm, waved goodbye to the staff as if it were any other night, wait in my car until they left, and then leave my keys on the shelf in the warehouse, a separate building that wasn't set off. My stupid self forgot to put in the right email because it was a weird one I couldn't remember when I got home. In the morning, I texted the store manager to let her know I wouldn't be coming in. That's all I said to see if he got the email. A few days later, he called to see how I was doing and asked if I was okay. I told him I was quitting via text message and blocked him. A week later, one of the owners called and asked for an exit interview. I didn't respond because I was honest about what I didn't like, what needed to change, and other things the whole time I worked there. It was too hard for them to put their feelings aside for business, and now you lose good employees. In short, several months later, I heard from the store manager's daughter that he was fired. I always hoped that my sudden leaving would help them make that choice. I worked at a private school for the deaf, and the owner wouldn't hire certified sign language interpreters. To save money, they would instead hire a college student to do the interpreting as a teaching assistant. I started my new job soon after the semester began, and the seniors had already left. After a month, they started making plans for me to read IEPs. The first 2 days, I came to work with a job description and a bill for my work. Not a signature, not a service. Some of us student workers who biked from campus to work parked next to the business owner on my last day. While on a hands-free call, they were laughing about how stupid we were as college students and how much money they were making by charging different deaf families crazy amounts of money for tuition. Think about how shocked they were when we got out of the car dressed as staff. Right away, I turned in my badge and then took a bus back to campus. A few months later, they were in the news in our area because parents were suing them for ADA violations. The facility closed because of bankruptcy and fraud. The last place I worked before where I am now. Being able to work there was great. The company was small and family-owned, about 30 people worked there. The business was run by a husband and wife team, and their 2 sons also worked there. Every 3 months, they would either take the whole company bowling or have lunch catered for everyone, all paid during work hours. We would just end early. It was great. Also, the stuff that came through was really cheap. They told everyone in December 2022 that they had sold the business. The sons wanted to do something different because the owners were getting old. They told her about the new owner and her new manager. She made it clear that she didn't want to change anything other than what we told her needed to be changed. They told us this on Friday morning, but I already had vacation planned for the following week. When I got back, I saw that the previous owners had forgotten to tell her I was in charge of the shop that did repairs. It was my job to oversee the tech, set up projects, get incoming pallets ready, and other things. That job went to the next best tech from the phone repair shop. He was put in charge of all repairs. He was as lost as I was, but he never told them that. It's okay, I had less work to do and still made the same amount of money, $17.50 an hour, by the way. Then they showed how cheap they were by canceling sales for employees. It was no longer okay for us to buy things. They also changed the whole process, which meant we had to throw away things that could have been fixed. It was no longer necessary for them to have us fix anything. It was thrown away if it didn't work on the first try. We didn't understand it very well. Then my boss at the time decided he wanted to start a side business as a tech consultant from where he lived 30 miles away, not the same kind of business as the thrift store. When they found out, they fired him right away. The techs and I had all lost interest in what we were doing, so we only did the bare facts. After that, I called in sick one day because I was sick. The manager that the owner hired told me they were firing me because they needed people that the team could rely on when I got back. What the F? I was ill! They put me in charge of taking things apart and I left after 10 minutes. The last time I heard, all of the techs had quit and now everything's being sent to other facilities. But before they left, the last two techs changed all of our repair tools' admin passwords and threw away all of the help files for them. F you, Cynthia. Which actions of your HOA or neighbors made you dislike them? Part 3. A friend of mine had a crazy neighbor. On the day they moved in, my friend pulled into the driveway and the neighbor coming out walked straight toward him. When my friend parked the moving truck about 2 inches off the edge of the driveway, he thought they were coming to meet their new neighbor. But they weren't. His neighbor was upset that they had parked his truck in his yard when he got there. That person asked my friend if he was sure that the land on the side of the driveway was still his. I told him I was sure and thanked him for asking. Because he was smart, he always made sure to put his tires a couple of inches into the grass when he pulled into the driveway after that. After about 2 months, the neighbor hires a surveyor to draw the lines between the plots. Turned out that my friend owned that foot or two of land on the side of the driveway. In fact, the neighbor's backyard fence was about a foot over the property line into my friend's yard. When the neighbor found out, he tried to take down the surveyor's stakes right away, but my friend's wife had already taken a picture of the bounding lines before he could get to them. My friend said to the neighbor, "How about we make a deal? I'll stay here, and you should stay over there. If you bother me or anyone in my family again, I'll tear down the portion of your fence that's on my property and have a big bonfire. Deal?" Renting in a converted lot. The loft owners let me rent from him since it wasn't an apartment building. I was on the second floor of a 4-story building. Everyone knew that my downstairs neighbor was a total jerk. I ran into him while moving the first day and told him I was his upstairs neighbor. He just looked at me and said, "I know," and walked away. Heard from several owners that he was confrontational. For example, he was the only one who spoke out against something at an HOA meeting when everyone had to agree just because he could. Or he wrote down when a baby was crawling and making too much noise for him from the previous tenants. After that, I played Call of Duty on Xbox. My power went out for no reason. The breaker was checked, and everything seemed to be okay. The hall lights are on, as well as the street and building lights. Near midnight, the lights come back on. Over the next month, this happens for no reason, and I call an electrician. He wants to know where the unit's breaker is. We found out that the unit's breaker is in the unit next door. We go downstairs to look into it, where the owner of the unit below asks for the electrician's credentials and makes a copy of them on a Xerox machine. When I try to follow him, the neighbor slams the door in my face. After a short wait, the electrician comes out, thanks the neighbor for his time, and tells me he's turning off your electricity. I tell the HOA about it and call the police several times after that. When the police came, he didn't answer the door, and he didn't read the HOA letters. Eventually, the HOA somehow got him to stop, and I bought a treadmill and figured I'd get some exercise revenge until the end of my lease. I lived next door to an Airbnb house. At first, everything was fine, but then during tourist season, the house was rented to a guy who had a lovely party with all his boys on a Tuesday night after midnight in the pool next to my bedroom window. Their cars blocked our driveway. After that, we called the police non-emergency line every month for 6 months because of different things that were happening. People having loud pool parties until 2 or 3 in the morning, playing goth metal music on a stereo that made our windows shake on that side of the house, leaving trash all over our yard, and parking their cars in our driveway when theirs were full were some other fun things that happened. I eventually contacted the owners through the Airbnb listing and explained that if they couldn't find tenants that could respect the residential area, that I would be happy to talk to the HOA about putting in an ordinance against short-term rentals for our area. Needless to say, after 6 months of BS, they put the house up for sale, and we finally had a nice neighbor that moved in. Finally, peace. The house next door was rented, and there were a lot of different renters in the 4 years I lived there. Some neighbors were too much to handle. They threw trash out their back window all the time where it collected and blew all over the neighborhood. Their kids were also a problem, and they yelled loudly and annoyingly all day and night. We didn't get along very well. To at least keep the trash storm to their third of the block, I decided to put up a privacy fence, but they yelled, called me names, and made threats because I was putting up a fence on their property. I was done with all my plots and knew exactly where the edges of my yard were. Just to be safe, I pulled that fence in a good couple of feet. One morning, I see a team of surveyors drawing lines around their yard. To their horror and shock, I was well inside the lines of my property and my fence was legal. After about a month, they moved out. Good luck. Not even my neighbor yet. Someone who could buy my neighbor's condo. Their windows mostly face our backyard and deck, which is technically a shared yard, even though they can't get to it without leaving their house and going around it. She emailed all of her neighbors about it and told the homeowners association that we were a disaster in the common yard. She also told her realtor that she wasn't going to buy the house because we were slobs. We rebuilt our deck and were finally done with it about a week ago when it snowed. Things like a few chairs and a small serving table were moved off the deck before they stained it. We have a 3-year-old, so there was a playhouse for toddlers in the backyard. There were also some random things in the grass near the deck, like garden shoes and other things. The other day, when my wife and I took a nap, our 12-year-old daughter did her homework at the kitchen table with a view of the deck. When she looked up, she saw 2 women staring at her and pointing. They were looking in all our windows and walking back and forth across the yard, taking a look around. She didn't want to wake us up, so she didn't say anything, but she was scared. We told her to tell us right away if that ever happened again, no matter what. I would have called the police if I had seen that. Most likely, it was the buyer and someone from the HOA board. We had already cleaned up, so I hope it was just so they could see what an asshole this woman is, but peeping through my windows to scare my kids is not okay. The best part is that the woman would have been free to pick up everything, say sorry, introduce herself, etc., if she had just knocked on our door instead of the door of the unit she's buying. There is now a war. I used to salt the driveway that my 2 neighbors and I shared. Now I could end up spilling water in front of her door and garage by accident. People would ask me to bring their trash cans in for them. Hers can sit on the curb and rot. I didn't care about the nails, screws, and trash when my neighbors were remodeling, even when I got a nail in my tire and had to get it fixed. This woman is buying to change things around. The HOA will definitely hear about every piece of paper, wood, fragment, nail, screw, bolt, or other object that ends up in their driveway instead of the dumpster that they will park in front of the building. After all, I have 3 kids, and they could hurt themselves. You want to watch the part 2? Click the link here. I'm very, very glad to see you all in the comments again. Many, many thanks for your support.